Yeah. Good morning. So, I had called in here the other day. I had voiced some concerns that I had about the senator's mm, logic skills, I would say, and his moral stances on a few things. And he had been so gracious as to respond via email to me, but somehow didn't answer a single question that I actually asked. But he did. So I asked about what he thought about President Trump pardoning people who beat cops and stomped on their heads and stuff like that, and bear sprayed them. We in Montana, we know how detrimental bear spray can be to organisms, because more so than probably folks that live in populated areas and stuff like that. Um, and he managed to, or whoever, I'm sure he didn't write it, but whoever managed to respond to me via email managed to write 3 paragraphs about the pardons that President Biden did, which I didn't even know President Biden was running in the 2024 election. I thought it was Kamala Harris, and so I was confused that he brought up somebody who wasn't even in the election. Um, and then I was also confused that he tried to do an apples to apples comparison of pardons versus pardons, and he brought up the fact that President Biden had pardoned Hunter Biden, which is true and bad. That being said, Hunter Biden was pardoned for, I think, tax crimes, which nothing against tax crimes. I will say y'all say that you hate the IRS though, so which is kind of weird that y'all are upset that he stuck it to the IRS. Uh, and that is even weirder when the other crime that he committed was because he bought a gun when he was using some drugs. Well, I'm just gonna say, if we start going after people who buy guns when they're using drugs, there won't be a single person in Montana. Yeah, not in jail. Because one out of 2 people that I know in Montana on drugs, and every single person darn near owns a gun. So it just seems weird that that's the red line that y'all drew. And then he brought up like Leonard Peltier, um, which is a weird case to bring up because that person, they at least did like 50 years in jail, right? Even if you think he was guilty of what his crime was, he did do 50 years in jail, which is a lot of time, right? Versus, I don't know, let's say 6 months or so. And so, yeah. But then he went on to ramble about how uh, people voted for Donald Trump, and then didn't even mention what he thought about the actual pardons that Donald Trump did. He basically just said that Donald Trump said he was going to pardon people, which is true. Donald Trump did tell you that he was going to pardon people who beat police. Then you went and voted for somebody who said they were going to pardon people who beat police. So I know how 78 million Republicans feel about this, but I didn't bet not a single word in a full page did the senator address how he felt about Donald Trump pardoning people who beat police. So could I get an answer to that now?
Yeah, I can absolutely send this along and
Wait,
try to
well,
get him on.
again, it was already sent along a week ago. I've actually already got the response back. I mean, I can read it to you word for word. Um,
Mhm.
0 is the amount of times he addresses his thoughts on Donald Trump pardoning people who beat police. Now, I can make some assumptions there, right? So, for instance, J.D. Vance, he used to be against the pardons like 2 weeks ago. Like 2 weeks ago, I could have asked y'all, Should we pardon people who beat police? And you'd be like, oh, God, no. That's terrible. Just like J.D. Vance said, well, we're not going to pardon people who actually beat police. That would be unconscionable. But of course, that was 2 weeks ago, right? And we're here today. But J.D. Vance said 2 days ago that that he was against pardoning people who brought violence against good cops. So if we wouldn't pardon people who committed violence against good cops, what's the logical inference there about who we would be okay pardoning? You can't pardon. You can pardon people who or you're not going to pardon people that beat up good cops. So who would you be willing to pardon against what type of cops? So if there's good ones, then what's the other group?
Yeah, I cannot speak to that.
You don't know what's the opposite of good, sir?
No, I'm not in a position where I can articulate my personal opinions on things.
Oh, that's not a personal opinion. Do you know what the opposite of good is? It's like, what's the opposite of evil? Let's do it that way. We'll do a reverse. Uno reverse card. What's the opposite of evil?
Absolutely. So my job here is to take down your concerns, specifically in the senator's response, and move on and get a more accurate response.
A more accurate response?
Yeah, I mean, I think your concern is that he didn't really address the problems you had brought up, and so I can pass that along.
Okay.
Write something more exact on his position would be the goal here.
Okay. I mean, if we were gamblers, what's the Vegas odds on me getting a response to this question of does he support Donald Trump's pardons of violent criminals? Because I'll just bring up two examples here real quick. Two of those people who got pardons, one of them's already they already got pulled over in their home state. I think they're from North Carolina. They got pulled over in North Carolina 2 days ago by police, got into a fight with police, tried to pull a gun on police, and the police killed a man. A different guy who was pardoned 9 days ago, he's already been charged with soliciting a 17-year-old for sex. And it's not even Matt Gaetz, a different person who solicits 17-year-olds. Not Matt Gaetz, but one of the people who was pardoned on January 6th. So again, we're releasing people from custody who beat police. Some of them already dead because they beat police, and then you know what they do a week later? They try to kill him. But did the senator vote for the Lincoln Riley bill? He did, right? He did, right?
Yes, he did, sir.
And the goal of that bill was to lock up potentially criminals so they couldn't commit crimes again. What, right?
No, the concern with the Lincoln Riley Act is specifically covered immediate deportation.
Yeah, but if a quote unquote illegal immigrant commits a crime, instead of arresting them and releasing them, you arrest them and hold them, right? So they can't commit bigger crimes. Because that's what happened to Lincoln Riley, right? So the guy got arrested. Right, but the guy who the bill was created for got arrested, got released, and then committed another crime. And this bill is designed to prevent arresting criminals, then letting them go, with the thought that, well, if you commit one crime, you're a criminal, and you would be comfortable committing another. Geez, where is this where have I heard this narrative before in this conversation today?
I think the central concern here is specifically oversight that the Senate has on executive orders, which is functionally nothing. This would have to be something that would be stopped by the judiciary.
So, okay, well, again, that is in direct contradiction of what y'all sent me in the mail the other day, because you
requested the senator's stance on this issue.
He gave me his stance on President Biden's pardons. I could tell you step by step. So he had a strong stance against pardoning Hunter Biden. He had an equally strong stance about pardoning the other members of the Biden family, who he said in his letter were suspected of committing crimes. And then he went on to say that Leonard Peltier, I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a Native American who was, some people believe justly, some other people believe unjustly, arrested for murder some 50 years ago. The senator said, you shouldn't use the pardon power there. So I got 7 instances in one response from the senator, 7, where he's very clear he's against the pardon power there. And so if there's 7 instances where we shouldn't use the pardon power, well, what if I ask you, can you give me a opinion on one of 1,600 examples? And it seems like if I'm giving you 1,600 instances where you could have an opinion, it seems like you could be one for 1,600. What's that? Even like 1/100% of opinion? So you're saying we don't know 1,600 crimes that where he would stand on those things? If somebody's wearing,
as I mentioned,
if somebody's wearing a because he is pro-Israel too, right? Right?
Yes, sir, he is.
Oh, okay. Is he aware that one of those people was wearing a Camp Auschwitz shirt? Now, I'm just going to say, if you are so gleefully breaking into the Capitol and you're wearing a sweatshirt that's bragging about how many Jews got gassed to Auschwitz, I don't know. Maybe you're not a good person. Maybe you should actually do some time in jail. You know, I don't know. Hell, maybe even just for being a Nazi. Right? But certainly when you're a Nazi breaking into the Capitol and then beating people.
Yes.
Sir, are we looking to make Nazis great again? Or are we trying to make America great again? Because Donald Trump made that Nazi pretty happy with his pardon. I tell you that. Are we trying to appease Nazis, sir?
More detailed response for you. I am going to pass this along. We just keep this line open for other constituents.
Ah, okay. Hey, what? 2 last ones. Donald Trump said he was going to end the Ukraine war on his first day. Is that thing still going on?
I'm not familiar with where we're at in that situation. I can certainly get a response.
You don't know if we're still, if Ukraine is still being invaded by Russia? Wow, I thought y'all had access to, you know, a phone.
Our legislative staff covering foreign policy could give you a detailed response on where we're at in this conflict.
Okay, but you don't know if Ukraine is still defending itself, if that whole thing's wrapped up.
We're going to put you on hold.
Oh, I don't need to be put on hold. Ah!